As dads, some days we feel like we have all the answers, and some days we feel like we don't have a clue. If that describes you, you're at the right place. This is the All Pro Dad Podcast. Hey, I'm Ted Lowe, and I'm joined today by two other dads, my co-host, Mr. Bobby Lewis,
hey,
and our guest, Reggie Lewis.
Hello, hello.
Are you guys related?
Yes.
What do you think?
What do you think?
Yes, we are. First cousins.
First cousins.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Between the three of us, we have kids in almost every age and stage. Each week, as you guys know, but maybe our new listener doesn't, we just take a look at one question, right? Take a look at one question and explore like what we've gotten wrong mostly. Occasionally what we've gotten right, and what do the experts say? And at the end, we give people a pro move, which sounds bigger than it is, but it's just one simple thing that dads can go and do who live in the real world, which is, most dads.
Most.
And we're going to dive into, Bobby, we'll dive into the question of the week, but I got to call out some props right now. Look at this place.
Isn't it nice?
It's crazy.
This is
New digs.
It is this studio. For those you just listened, the studio, you need to go check out the videos. Look at this place.
I know. It's beautiful.
New
If
studio,
you've seen the old ones,
new jacket.
new clothes picked up by my wife.
Clothes.
It's fantastic. Yeah,
Everything's new around here.
Yeah.
Everything's new around here. Absolutely. Okay, Bobby, what is our question of the episode?
I'm excited about this particular episode because this is a really good question we should be asking ourselves. Are our kids learning to forgive? Big question. Big question. Yeah.
Are they?
Well, I know that as a kid, I wasn't really thinking about forgiveness. In fact, there's probably some things that we've all done as kids that we wish we had gotten forgiveness for. And maybe there's some funny stuff you guys have from your childhood that you're still holding on to. Anything like that?
Absolutely. I remember I was in 7th grade and I have an older brother. He's 6 years older than me. And I loved wearing his clothes, right? And they were, he was like 3 times bigger than me, but I would wear them. This is when it was fashionably okay to wear big clothes.
Oh, okay.
So I'd go to school and he had these white Tommy Hilfiger jeans. They were amazing. And everybody thought so too. Everybody was like, look, you got new jeans. And I stole them from him though, right? Nice. So I never asked.
Nice.
So I'm not forgiving him for something that I did, but I put them in my locker because I was like, how do I get these home without him knowing that I took them?
Nice.
And for a week straight, I didn't know how to do it.
So he's having a tough time forgiving you, not the other way around,
no,
right?
No, I know. What happened is he told on me and I don't forgive him for that. Yeah. I just wanted to be cool like him, so I don't forgive him for it.
Yeah.
Reggie, I forgot to ask you, how old are your kids?
My kids, I have an 8-year-old, I have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and then one on the way.
Awesome.
On the way.
Big family, man.
Did they steal each other's clothes?
No, they don't. Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah.
You know, well, no, the 3-year-old likes wearing his brother's stuff. Like he has a car shirt and he's like, I'm wearing Noah's shirt today.
I have not forgiven my brother for getting into the drums because we shared a room.
Yeah,
that's it. He got into. He's a great drummer, but I haven't forgiven him for that. No, we could have picked something quieter. We shared a room for years, and it was just all day, bang, bang, bang. I have never forgiven him for that.
That's hilarious. I think for me, I still am not over this. I mean, it brings up like a visceral response in my body when I think about the fact I got a Stretch Armstrong from Santa Claus, and I was so excited. Do you guys know what those are, Reggie?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
I don't know. Anyway, it's this stretchy thing, and inside it, it's got some kind of goo, but it's amazing. You could stretch it. You can't break it unless you do what my brother did. He took an ink pen and stabbed it because he wanted to see what was inside of it.
Yeah.
And it's like disgusting jelly. So don't
do that.
Let my pain be your exploration. But I was devastated.
Yeah.
I'm going to need a minute.
You can be all right.
Yeah, I'm going to be all right.
Obviously, forgiveness is something we all have to do, but is there a time where maybe you find it most difficult to talk to your kids about forgiveness? I mean, maybe right in the moment you say, hey, we need to forgive someone, but is it tough to talk to your kids about that sort of stuff?
Yeah, because they're still in the moment of this is what dawned on me. They're in the moment of betrayal. I look at my kids and I feel that when they are struggling with forgiving someone, they feel betrayed. Not like, a subtle, like somebody cut me off in traffic. They're like, how could you do this? You slapped me in my eye on accident or on purpose with their sibling and whatnot. But it's tough in the moment. So how do you take them out of that moment? I try to get them out of the environment that the incident or something happened in where they can't forgive. And so if it's we're in the living room, it's like, all right, let's go to your room and talk about this. You're no longer at the crime scene. Right. So that's what I try to do. But yes, it can be tough. It can be tough because they don't want to listen either in that moment.
Yeah, Ted, you've got 4 kids as well. Are some of them better at forgiving than others?
That's a great question. I think the tough thing with forgiveness for all of us is this issue of fairness. Like, kids say that, well, that's not fair. But I think some of my kids are either better at forgiving or they're better stuffers. I've got one kid, he's like, I don't have the energy to be mad about this. I mean, he is easy like Sunday morning. But yeah, I think it is. It's tough for our kids to get this. Like you said, they're in the middle of being betrayed. And I think just neurologically, when a kid is upset and they're frustrated, they're operating out of the emotional part of their brain. Their frontal lobe is out to lunch. And so you start talking about forgiveness in the middle of all that emotion, it doesn't go well. So I think with my kids, I've had to learn, even after, a game where they felt like something wasn't fair, I got to give them space to get through that emotion and then bring it up and say, hey, how are you feeling about that? You and your brother okay? Yeah. You guys doing okay? What do you think about that? So that's a little bit tougher is when they're in the middle of emotion. I wish I'd have learned that sooner though. Yeah.
Well, the question of the episode, I thought was a great one. Are our kids learning to forgive? Huge question, but maybe a question that we should ask within that is, what happens if they don't? I know you've researched a little bit of that.
Yeah, I think forgiveness is one of the keys to, it's keys to a healthy relationship. We just feel this tension in our homes. That's just proven too that we sense other people's emotions. I mean, we know that you're driving down the road in the car, you can sense it with your kids, you can sense it with your spouse. Reggie, what about you?
I'm totally agree. Where I believe that forgiveness is a gift that you give yourself. And you can take yourself out of that point of tension and bring back peace into the situation. Because a lot of times, the person you are out to forgive has already forgotten about it. It happened. Let's keep going. And you're harboring this unforgiveness, and that can be toxic. That can hurt. And I've seen my kids do that. And I love what you said about giving them the space to navigate and to really, figure out how to forgive, why they want to forgive, and give that gift to themselves.
Yeah, I actually was reading an article by Abby Watts, who's a content manager for iMom. If you have a wife or a sister or someone that you think might benefit from learning the mom side of some of the stuff we talk about, go check out imom.com. It's got some great resources. But one of the articles that Abby wrote that was talking about forgiveness, she wrote this and it's really great. It says, not forgiving others keeps you enslaved to the pain and anger you're feeling and the actions of the other person. I was like, man, Abby, that's so good, because you were just saying sometimes the person that you're holding this grudge against or you haven't forgiven, they don't even remember they upset you. So you're really just enslaving yourself sometimes to these feelings, and bitterness can grow and envy can grow and all these just nasty things that hold you down. And you gotta, for your own good, you gotta let this stuff go. And we gotta teach that to our kids.
We do. And I think about, we want our kids to leave our homes or, go off to college. Like, what are some skills that you're packing there? And then when they get married, we're standing there watching them get married one day, you go, okay, if I could pack in like 5 skills for them to be able to manage with their spouse, I think forgiveness may be top the list to say, hey, just with marriage and life, there's going to be times you're going to need to know how to forgive, even when it's not fair. Yeah. Right.
That's wow. Yeah. Great point. When it's not fair.
When it's not fair, which is going to be a lot.
With the 8, 6, and 3-year-old, I get a lot of, well, that's not fair. Well, that's not fair. And it's like, that's another topic, I don't know how to really get through. But the forgiveness as you get older for your spouse, you're going to come up against these opportunities to do that more than you think, right?
Right.
Your friends. And so, given forgiveness is a top quality that you need in life. And that, again, you get to kind of dig yourself out of a hole every single time somebody might put you in one, if you will.
Yeah. It's good. One cool thing about forgiveness and our role as parents is that we have the opportunity to mold a forgiver in our kids, because you know they're going to learn in their own household with potentially siblings or even just with their parents what it means to forgive, with the people that love them the most. You're going to be able to learn from people who love you, and then you're going to go outside your home to school or baseball team or whatever you're doing, and you're going to bump into people that maybe don't love you the same way that your family does. But you need to be able to forgive all of the people that you come into contact with. And if you can learn that skill at home with the people that truly care about you deeply, you know, I think that's going to set you up for success as a kid.
Almost become unoffendable, right? Where things do happen, and like, don't even allow people to put you in the position where you need to forgive them. That's because that's how you move. Right. That's how I've before you've offended me, I have already forgiven you. All right. Like in how do you teach that? You do start with hey, forgive your brother, forgive your sister, forgive me. I ask for forgiveness from my kids all the time.
Oh yeah.
To just model that, like, hey, I need that too. And then I forgive them, to let them see that. And I put them in front of my wife and I, and let them see us forgive one another for small things, right? Because it's just little things.
Yeah, with them to be able to see, right? And my heart aches for our kids too, because they, you know, we live in a very polarized world where there's not this model of forgiveness outside of our homes, right? You know, I travel a lot and I see it all the time. Like, I see children grown up that are now traveling who are still children that don't know how to forgive or give grace, and they can't understand why the person that's checking them in can't, you know, move the airplane or change things, or why is this, you know, why is the traffic like this? Or what, you know, I watch people get really angry in traffic, and you're like, where's that taking you? And maybe that's a good analogy to think about. Like, the reverse of forgiveness is a whole lot of angst and a whole lot of anger. So I think that's another thing that we got to help them think through, to go, if you don't forgive, then what are you going to do?
Yeah.
What are you? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously forgiveness, you have to have that to maintain healthy relationships, to manage conflict. But the opposite of that is unforgiveness, and kids can choose not to forgive. So we want to model for them that you should forgive. And you just mentioned the word bitterness. Like, that's one of the things that creeps in when you choose unforgiveness instead of forgiveness. And Buck Buchanan is one of the other dads here who's been on a couple of different podcasts. He said something the other day about forgiveness that stuck out to me. And I think he learned it from his pastor. He says, bitterness is like drinking poison and waiting for the other guy to die. Like that's just not going to happen. You know, it eats away at you, and the other person may not even be affected by it. It's one of those things that it compounds and it compounds, and kids don't maybe understand it the way that adults will be able to think through it. And so we have to be there to help them through it. And I was reading one of the other articles on All Per Dad about this, and we're going to have a bunch of these show notes with links to, you know, forgiveness related stuff you can read. But one of the things that stood out to me in an article about forgiveness was this line that basically said, instinctively, we all know that forgiveness is a good thing to do. And I thought, do we? Like, I don't know that kids do that. I don't know that kids instinctively think forgiveness is a good thing. Let's do it. Yeah. I think we have to teach them that it's a good thing.
Right.
Has that been your experience with your kids?
I think we absolutely have to teach it. You know, Reggie, we would say the same. Our kids do know how to apologize because we've had to so much. You know, I can be quick to the draw, especially when they were little, to reactions. And then I have to go back. I've had to learn space, right? And giving that space is huge. But there's going to be times you don't give space or you don't handle something. And I think to be able to go to them and say, you know, buddy, what you did, I'm still going to tell you that's not okay, but I did not handle it well. I'm so sorry. And our kids, I will say this, you know, we talk about a lot of our weaknesses on this, but I do feel like my kids are good. They'll apologize. Or even when they don't notice something, as they've become young adults, I can bring something up to them and, hey, that was tough. That was tough for your mom to hear. Oh, I'm sorry. And then they'll go back. Or I'll even text them sometimes. Oh, that was a little tough on mom. And they don't get defensive with it. That's been a good one. It's been an important one. And I think, you know, unforgiveness is very painful for your family. It's painful. Who experiences the person that can't give it, that's painful. The person that's, you know, getting the silent treatment or however it is somebody expresses that's a really big deal. And so it increases the anxiety in your house, and it robs the joy. I mean, you watch Vacations, right? And someone's mad and people are angry. It's like, oh man, this is robbing this experience because relationally you guys are off. Yeah.
I mean, I think we all know someone, you know, older than 18, 19 in their 20s, 30s, where you're like, oh, wow, you have a problem with forgiving people.
Yeah.
And I would never want that for my children.
Yeah.
And I think you asked the question, do our children instinctively know how to forgive? It made me think like, I think they do. Why? Because there were times where in the infant stage of every single one of my children, did I forget to change their diaper? Yes. Did they still come crying out to me and wanting me to hold them and love them? And like, they didn't have a problem with, hey, you know, so I think we have to speak it into our children. Like, hey, you're really good at forgiving. You're really good at that. And even when they're like, no, I'll never forgive. No, you're really good at forgiving. You know how I know? Because you have forgiven me plenty of times.
Yeah.
And so to affirm that quality trait in their lives.
Yeah. And I think we've established obviously that it's a good thing, but it's one thing to know that we want to teach our kids to forgive. It's another thing to actually put it into action. So we came up with 3 points for all the dads listening of how you can actually do this, how you can teach your kids to forgive. And the first one is simply just define forgiveness. How would you define forgiveness?
You know, as we were prepping for this episode and you start looking at definitions, you're like, oh, wow, I'm not sure most kids or even adults are going to be able to process this. And then I talked to somebody that works in the children's space, and she defined it as this, and I thought it was great. She defines it as deciding that someone who has wronged you doesn't have to pay.
Yeah.
And I just thought to say that to a kid at a pretty young age, to say, deciding that someone who's wronged you doesn't have to pay. Because the problem with this is it's not fair. Something's just happened to them that's not fair, and they know it. So you're going, now this is your decision to kind of say, hey, they don't have to pay for this, and you're going to be in the same spot needing this. Reggie, I want to double click too on what you're saying as we define it. You said catch them doing it, and I think that's true with every episode, but I think this one especially to go, hey, good job forgiving your brother. Way to go. You know, I think sometimes with my older kids, I had like a higher expectation of what I wanted them with their younger brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
And we even called our oldest one the third parent. But I think like we had to say, I tried to catch him doing more and more. Hey, that was great that you did that because your brothers and sisters are watching. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I learned that from All Pro Dad curriculum at the schools where we teach dads and we show dads to look into their children and look at their, again, high quality traits and call them out, right? Nourish that in them. And so
praise them for it. Yeah.
Praise them for it. Always, you know, don't hold back from that.
Yeah. You know, we talked about this a little bit last night at the dinner table in preparation. I knew we were going to do this podcast today. And so I asked my 3 kids, you know, 4, 8, and 12, I was like, what does forgiveness mean to you? And, you know, they answered it in a similar way. You know, 4-year-old was like, get over it. You know, it's like, okay, yeah,
maybe that's the best definition.
Kind of it, yeah.
Get over it.
Like
but
that.
then I was able to dive a little bit deeper. You know, we're a Christian family, and I was able to come to them and be like, hey, listen, it's hard. Like none of the stuff we're trying to tell you guys as dads is just do it and move on. Like it's a really hard thing to do to forgive, no matter what age you are. And I wanted our kids to know that, but I also wanted them to know that like you have been forgiven. Like God has forgiven you for all of your sins when you repent and you believe. And so that was one of the things that we taught our kids at the dinner table is like, we forgive because we have been forgiven. We can't expect other people to do something we're not willing to do for them sometimes. And so I really wanted them to have that point driven home. It's like, listen, if you want to get it, you got to give it. That's good. That's very important to have that reciprocal thing.
Wow.
I think the second point of how do we teach our kids to forgive is acknowledge the feelings. And we just mentioned it. It's hard. Like, forgiveness is not easy at all. And there's a lot of hurt feelings. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of angst there. Acknowledge that this is a tough thing to go through as a kid.
Yeah. You know, it's really hard that you say that, acknowledging the feelings. You know, I think my children struggle with, if they're wronged by their siblings or even wronged by me, they typically go silent. And a beautiful trait in forgiveness is go to the person who has wronged you and tell them how it made you feel. Right? Just
even if it's awkward.
Even if it is going to be awkward. When is it like even in marriage, right? Like how easy is it to go to your spouse and be like, hey, like married 10 years, this might be, you know, a tough conversation. But one thing I would like to start teaching my kids just from this acknowledge feelings is like, not only acknowledge your feelings, but then go tell your sibling, hey, this made me feel this way. Come tell me, hey, Dad, when you disciplined me because I didn't do this. Like my son, I love it. I love what he does all the time. He like, because I'm in dad mode, right? So I'm like, Noah, like let's figure this out. And he'll be like, but Dad, you didn't let me explain. And I'm like, oh shoot, okay, let me slow down. What happened, son? You know, and now we're on an even playing field because maybe the person you're set to forgive needs to know how they made you feel, and that you also are on the journey to forgive them. Yeah,
I think forgiveness ultimately is an act of love. And I know there's so many other emotions wrapped up in forgiveness and unforgiveness and tension and bitterness and all that. But really, it's an act of love. It's saying, I love you more than the effort required to hold on to this forever. Yeah. And so I'm going to forgive you because I love you. Right. And I want my kids to learn that, you know?
Yeah.
Well, you make a great point. Like you said, my kids go silent. I think with different kids, our kids, we've got a kid that will go silent and will hold on to their forgiveness. The others, you know that they're angry. You know that they need to grant forgiveness. Depending on their personalities, we may have to go to them and to talk about that. But I think we need to acknowledge, this really hurt you. But if you hold on to it, it's going to remain. It's going to continue to hurt you and your relationship.
Yeah. So the first way we teach is define it. Second way, acknowledge the feelings. And the last way we teach is to lead by example. I know you guys probably have opportunities to lead by example all the time with forgiveness, but it's something that's really important. We got to model this.
We do. We have to model it with our kids. And I think it's powerful for dads to humble themselves and say you're sorry.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of the pressure off too, to know, hey, I'm going to mess up. You're going to mess up. Yeah. So it's either you learned how to say you're sorry after you do, or you don't mess up. So good luck with that.
Yeah. And children, my kids at least, and I don't know about your children, but a lot of times they feel like kids can feel like they are a mess up by just how they move and, you know, who they are. And you're like, hey, I verbally let them know I forgive you. And that's how I model it, where it's like if they know they did wrong, like, hey, they went and took candy out of the pantry. And I'm like, hey, like we just had this big thing this past week where it's like nonstop candy grabbing. And I'm like, you get 2 pieces a day. How'd you get that piece, 3-year-old? And knowing he climbed up on the pantry and you're like, dude, you could have hurt yourself all for a piece of candy. Okay, I get it. And it's looking at him and saying, you know what though? I forgive you. Was it good? Can you give me some, please?
That's good. That's good.
I think it's important for us to do that exact thing, is like treat others the way you want to be treated. That golden rule. It's like, well, if I want to be forgiven when I mess up, because I'm going to mess up, I better be ready to forgive people as well. And the example that I used last night, just to kind of give my kids a visual, was, have you seen those like World's Strongest Man competitions where the guy puts on the harness and pulls a semi truck? I'm like, that's super impressive. I'm not doing that. But it's really cool. And I got that visual in my head when I was thinking about forgiveness. I'm like, how relieved does that even super strong guy feel when he takes the harness off and walks without pulling the truck? As strong as he is, as much as he thinks he can handle the weight and carry this thing on, when he takes the harness off, he walks more freely and with more confidence. And I was like, guys, that's what forgiveness is. Like you can hold on to this heavy weight forever and ever and ever, but it's going to feel so much better if you just let it go. And it doesn't mean you won't forget. I mean, you're going to remember that someone hurt you or wronged you, but you choose to love them and let go of this heavy thing that's weighing you down. And you're going to walk with freedom. You know,
that's a great point.
Yeah.
You guys, that's good. That's good. So I'm hearing several things as we think this through. It's like, we need to define it, right? We got to define it for them. We need to acknowledge, hey, this is really tough, but if you hold on to it, it's tough. Lead by example. I think that's probably the biggest thing, like the biggest takeaway. And so for our pro move of the week, I think we model forgiveness this week, or talk to them about it. Again, you could talk to a kid about some really great things when they're not in the middle of those things. You're driving down the road and go, hey, what's the toughest thing you've ever had about forgiveness? One thing it's talking to them about it. But the pro move of this week is to model forgiveness.
Yeah. Should be easy.
Should be.
Right,
we should.
Good luck.
So what's the dream, guys? What's the dream if they do this for all of us? If we get better at this, what happens?
Yeah, I think your children grow up and forgive you for however you parented and brought them up, because there's going to be a lot of things that they can forgive you for. And I want them to do that so we can have a great relationship, and they're released from the weight that they're holding on. So many dads in general or moms can feel the weight of that they're carrying from how they were raised and the mistakes their moms and dad made. So I don't want that for my children. And so that's what I would say.
Wow. So that's powerful. So you're releasing them from your mistakes that they're still struggling with. That's good. For all you dads listening, when you could be listening to so many other podcasts, well done. We know that your kids are going to be glad that you listened to this podcast, right, Bobby? Instead of the one Bobby usually listens to.
Yeah.
Right?
About, no, I won't. No.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time on the All Pro Dad podcast. Thanks for listening to the All Pro Dad podcast. All Pro Dad is the fatherhood program of the nonprofit Family First. Along with our motherhood program, iMom, we exist to help you love your family well. Subscribe to our daily email, the All Pro Dad Play of the Day, by going to allprodad.com/subscribe and get daily powerful and practical fatherhood tips in your inbox. The All Pro Dad podcast is hosted by me, Ted Lowe, produced by Bobby Lewis. As we wrap up today, I want to share something that's important to us here at All Pro Dad. We believe that every child deserves to know the love of a mom and a dad. We hope you believe the same thing and might even be willing to take an extra step to change a child's life. Around the country, but especially in the state of Florida, where All Pro Dad is based, there's a pressing need for medical foster care parents. These foster care parents provide crucial support to children with complex medical needs. To be a medical foster care parent, you don't need a medical background. We've partnered with the local community-based care agencies and the Florida Department of Children and Families, who provide comprehensive training. If you can offer the vital medical assistance these children need, along with compassionate care in a family environment, you're prepared to be a true medical foster care champion. Learn more by visiting mfc.floridahealth.gov. That's mfc.floridahealth.gov.